Aiden explains that there were 5 slash-and-burn farming villages in the Forest of Death. Aiden, the first village we reached was completely destroyed. It was a massacre. No survivors, no buildings left standing. We were terrified, so we hurried to the second village, only to find it in the same condition. The third village, the same, wiped out. They moved with growing despair toward the fourth village. Tyan, standing before the devastation, shook with fury. Tyan, angrily, this is the fourth one. And the last 3 villages, they weren't any different from this. The guards began searching for survivors, but they found none. Aiden and Tyan also searched, with Aiden's thoughts racing. Aiden, thinking, did no one survive here either? Even a farming village like this should have had some defense. How did such a one-sided massacre happen? These can't be ordinary bandits. Who on earth are these people? Suddenly, one of the guards called out, his voice filled with urgency. Guards shouting survivors. There are survivors here. Hearing this, Tyan's face showed deep regret. He had failed to protect his people. 2 children, a boy and a girl, were found, trembling in fear. One of the guards gritted his teeth as he lifted a piece of debris that had shielded them from the fire. Guard beside Tyan. It looks like they dodged the flames by hiding under the debris. Tyan knelt before the children, extending a hand gently. Tyan softly, we're the Knights of Cetus. We've come to protect you. You're safe now. The children, faces red with tears, cried harder at his words. The boy, in disbelief, asked, Boy, tearfully, the Knights of Cetus, are you really here to protect us? Suddenly the girl leaped forward and hugging Tyan tightly. Tyan, momentarily flustered, gently patted the little girl's back. Tyan, apologetically, I'm sorry we were late. The boy then fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Boy pleading, if you're really knights, then please, save our parents too. Tyan's heart sank. He looked at the boy, sorrow in his eyes. Tyan, softly, with regret. I'm sorry, but I'm sure your parents have gone to a very peaceful place. The boy suddenly shouted, his voice filled with desperation. Boys shouting no. The attackers dragged our parents and everyone else to another place. Our parents are definitely still alive. Hearing this, Tyan became furious, clenching his fists tightly as his teeth ground together. Tyan, angrily, what? They took everyone alive? Tyan stormed out of the fourth village, seething with rage. Aiden, walking beside him, was confused, his thoughts racing. Aiden, thinking, why would they take all the villagers instead of killing them? What could they possibly want? We don't have enough information, but maybe we'll find some clues in the last village. As they made their way toward the 5th village, Aiden suddenly heard something. He called out urgently. Aiden whispering, Tyan, someone's here. Tyan's anger flared even hotter. His eyes turned red with fury as he unsheathed his sword. Tyan, growling, is it those scum? Great. I'll make sure they pay for their sins right now. Just then, Tyan saw something that made him freeze in place. Several figures appeared, preparing to attack. The knights, along with Lo, readied their weapons. But before they could engage, Tyan shouted. Tyan, shouting, everyone stop. Both Aiden and Lena turned to Tyan, shocked by his command. Tyan's expression softened, and a small smile crept onto his face. Tyan, calming, it's not the bandits. As they lowered their weapons, a man from the opposing group gave a similar order. Opposing leader, stand down. It was the head of the 5th village, Marcus. He stepped forward, addressing Tyan with concern. Marcus, worried. Tyan, why are you here? Are you here to help us? Aiden, still confused, turned to Tyan. Aiden, curious, do you know him? Tyan, with a mix of happiness and sorrow, nodded. Tyan softly, he used to be a knight in the Cetus Order about 10 years ago. I heard he left after a serious injury, but I never expected to find him here. Tyan approached Marcus, his sword still in hand. He smirked, though his voice carried an edge of nostalgia. Tyan teasing Marcus, that's a pretty cold greeting. Marcus, his fists clenched, looked down apologetically. Marcus, regretful, I'm sorry. Bandits have been showing up more and more lately, so I couldn't afford to greet you casually. He glanced at Tyan and managed a faint smile. Marcus, smiling, "You've improved quite a bit since I last saw you. I almost didn't recognize you." Tyan suddenly placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. He lowered his head, his voice soft but filled with relief. "Tyan, grateful. Thank God you're okay." Marcus, startled by Tyan's words, looked at him in shock. His expression changed quickly as dread filled his eyes. Marcus, fearful, "Don't tell me, the other villages, they've already been?" Tyan's face tightened with worry as he turned to Marcus. "The other villages, they've been ambushed. There are barely any survivors. It's a relief, at least, that your village is still standing." Tyan raised his head, but Marcus looked at him sharply. "Fine, you say? It's late. I'll take you to my village first." As they entered Marcus' village, a man lay on the ground, clutching his belly, writhing in excruciating pain. Purple energy pulsed from his wound. Beside him, another villager knelt, his voice trembling. "Why won't the potion work? How can I treat him?" Aiden stepped forward, assessing the situation with a calm, sharp gaze. "You won't be able to heal that with a regular potion." He reached into his pack and handed over a glowing vial. "Here, take this. It's a holy potion." The man who received it gasped, astonished. "Are you really giving us this? A holy potion? It's priceless." He bowed his head in gratitude, murmuring his thanks. Aiden's face hardened as he stood tall and shouted to the crowd, "Listen up. Anyone whose wounds are emitting dark light has been struck by black demonic energy. Regular potions won't work on them. Come to me for holy potions. It's the only way to treat those wounds." Aiden moved quickly, distributing the potions one by one. Inwardly, he sighed in relief, thinking to himself, "Good thing I packed a ton of holy potions in my subspace pocket." Underlord smirked. "I thought you cared more about money than saving lives." "This is a surprise?" Aiden's jaw tightened. Anger flashed in his eyes as he gritted his teeth. "What do you take me for? Of course, it's not free. Tyne's going to pay me back with interest. And besides, I can't let those chaos bastards have their way." Underlord chuckled. "As expected of you." Suddenly, a man approached, holding a child tightly in his arms. "Can you help him too?" he pleaded. "Of course," Aiden started, but then he froze, eyes narrowing as he looked closer. The child was wrapped in cloth, appearing human at first glance, but something was off. As Aiden inspected more carefully, he realized with shock that this was no human. It was an ant, and it too was wounded, the same dark, purple energy seeping from its injuries. Meanwhile, near the village, bandits were approaching. One of them sneered. "Those losers we kicked out of the city. They fought back hard, but it wasn't enough." Another bandit grinned darkly. "That one-armed old man is mine. Don't mess with him." As the bandits marched toward the village, they weren't alone. A dark mage, cloaked in ominous robes, walked among them. One of the bandits glanced at the mage and sneered. "You couldn't use your powers last time. This time, give it everything you've got, all right? After all, that's how we help each other out, right? We get all the food and money from these villages, and you get the people. That's the deal, isn't it?" The black mage turned, his expression cold and disdainful. "Ignorant fools. All you have is brute strength, and yet you never stop talking. Just move the captives to the place I told you about." The bandit, irritated, muttered under his breath, "Damn black mages." Meanwhile, the black mage's thoughts were far darker. "Once we're finished here, I'll use these bandits too," he mused, a sinister smile creeping onto his face. Red energy began to swirl around him, radiating a palpable evil. "These people should be enough for my research," he thought, relishing the power coursing through him. In a dimly lit room, two small candles on the side table cast a soft glow across the space. The ant slowly opened her eyes, blinking in confusion. Where am I?" she murmured. Aiden, who was sitting beside her, looked up. "You're awake." The ant's eyes widened in shock. She sat up abruptly, her voice trembling as she cried, "Please don't kill me." She clutched her chest, sobbing. "I'm not tasty. Please don't eat me." Aiden sighed, resting his hand on his knee. "I'm not going to eat you, so stop crying and don't be scared." Just then, Aiden's mouth parted slightly, and a bit of drool slipped from the corner as if something tasty was right in front of him. His eyes lit up with excitement. Underlord, watching, rolled his eyes. How is she supposed to believe you won't eat her when you're making that face? Flustered, trying to reassure her. I'm telling you, I won't eat you. My Ilix, no, I mean it. Despite his attempts, the Ent burst into louder sobs, pleading, I'm poisonous. If you eat me, you'll definitely get a stomachache. Trying to change the atmosphere, Aiden pulled out a pouch of lichbone powder. As he opened it, the scent wafted toward the Ent. Her nose twitched, and she looked up, her eyes brightening. Is it really okay for me to eat this? She asked timidly. Aiden grinned. That's right. I don't need the bone powder anyway. He handed it to her, and she hesitantly took a nibble. Her eyes lit up, and soon, she was devouring it with obvious enjoyment. It's delicious, she exclaimed, a satisfied look on her face. Aiden watched her, both amused and fascinated. Wow, she's really into lichbone powder. Underlord leaned in, cheeks slightly flushed with pride. I told you, Ents can't resist lichbone powder. Aren't you glad you listened to me? Aiden chuckled. Thanks. Then, leaning closer to the Ent, he asked gently, but why were you injured and unconscious in the forest? At this, the Ent froze. The others, the people running with me, where are they? Aiden's face softened. The people who brought you here told us that you were the only one they found, injured and lying unconscious in the forest. They didn't see anyone else with you. The Ent's expression darkened, her voice barely a whisper. Could it be? She trailed off, a silent worry flickering in her eyes. Aiden leaned closer, his voice sincere. Do you know what's happening in the forest? If you tell me the truth, I might be able to help. The Ent looked down, confused and conflicted. Mom and Dad told me not to trust humans. Suddenly, a bell clanged loudly throughout the village, followed by the urgent shouts of the guards. We're under attack. One guard bellowed, and another yelled, the bandits are back. Aiden's head whipped toward the gate as he rubbed his chin. Ah, those bandits again. Turning back to the Ent, he said calmly, Look, I can't help if you keep quiet. Just hide here for now. The Ent began to cry again, thought. I can only hope he's not like other humans. Then, almost in a whisper, he called after Aiden. Wait, can you really help our forest? Are you different from the others? Aiden paused, visibly startled for a moment, as he looked back at the Ent. Outside, the bandits charged toward the village with wild shouts. Let's wipe them out completely, one bellowed. Not a single one of these rats gets away, roared another. The Cetus Knights quickly moved forward to meet the assault, their voices steady and resolute. Protect the village. Stand firm and don't fear these bandits. The knights lined up, forming ranks, shields raised in anticipation. But then, behind the charging bandits, the black mage raised his hand, dark magic crackling with purple energy. His eyes glinted as he muttered to himself, I don't recognize these men. Knights of this territory? Well, more sacrifices for my offering. That's not so bad. Then he called out in a chilling voice, Rise, dead ones. Moments later, corpses emerged from the ground, clawing their way back to life. The knights closest to the undead recoiled, teeth gritted in horror. The undead, what? One of them gasped. Another groaned, Ugh, I've never fought the undead before. Just then, Priestess Luna strode forward, her gaze unwavering. She looked toward the black mage with disdain. So, you're the sinner behind this wickedness. A knight turned to her, alarmed. Priestess Luina, it's dangerous. Let us handle the bandits. You take care of the undead, he called. Tyne stepped up behind the knights, his voice calm. Just let Luina do her thing. The knights exchanged uneasy glances, tension written across their faces. One muttered, But there are so many of them. Sweat glistened on Tyne's brow as he spoke quietly. You might not know this, but there's no one better suited to this situation than her. He paused, his voice grim. A mad priestess with the face of an angel, a warrior of carnage who brings death in the name of her god. At that moment, Luina gripped her weapon tightly and launched herself into the air. Tyne watched her ascent, muttering, That's what a priest of the divine carnage cult is like. In midair, Luina's eyes shone a fierce, wild red, and a crazed smile spread across her face. She shouted, "Death to those who have incurred bad karma." With a powerful swing, she came crashing down with brute force, slamming into the ground. The impact shattered the earth, and a shockwave rippled outward, hitting all the bandits and undead in the area. The black mage's eyes went wide, and he gritted his teeth, whispering, "What is that? Where did a monster like her come from?" Luina landed gracefully, a serene look replacing her earlier frenzy. She murmured, "O god of death and carnage, by your name, allow your servant to wield this power." With another swing of her weapon, she sent a massive shockwave, and nearby enemies were flung backward. The black mage's face twisted with rage as he watched his summoned undead and bandits fall in mere seconds. She took out the bandits and the undead in just 2 hits, damn her. With fury, he raised his hand, chanting darkly. Purple, malicious energy coiled around his fingers, reaching out toward Luina. "O curse of death, devour that crazy woman," he snarled. But as the dark energy shot toward her, Luina suddenly vanished. The black mage staggered, searching in confusion. What? Where did she go? In the next instant, Luina appeared behind him, descending from the air, her weapon poised to strike. Sensing something, the black mage whirled around. His face went pale, sweat pouring down in terror. He barely had time to react before Luina struck him with a crushing blow, sending blood splattering. Meanwhile, the knights pressed forward, surrounding the remaining bandits. One knight ran up to Tyan. "We've rounded up all the remaining bandits." Tyan nodded, sighing. "Good work," but his face darkened with confusion. "Did they say what they did with the villagers they captured?" The knight glanced at the bandits, a worried frown on his face. "Well, they're not exactly sure. They only took what they could sell and said they dropped the villagers off where the archmage instructed." Tyan's expression shifted to shock. "What?" He turned back to the knight, frustration mounting. "So, the dark mage is dead. Does that mean there's no way for us to rescue the villagers?" Suddenly, Aiden appeared, stepping forward with a determined expression. "There is a way, Tyan." Hearing his voice, Tyan turned, anger flashing in his eyes. "Where have you been all this time, Aiden?" He paused, the tension easing slightly as he asked, "Wait, there's a way for us to find the villagers?" Aiden moved closer, nodding. "Yes, there's a way." But he hesitated, frustration etched on his face. "We don't have much time. We need to hurry." Earlier, the inn had revealed to Aiden that the dark mages had taken many other ints, and Aiden had been shaken by the news. "What? Seriously?" he'd asked, barely containing his shock. The int nodded, explaining, "Yes, they captured me too and locked me up, but I managed to escape. And it's not just ints, they've taken many humans as well." Aiden had clenched his jaw, placing a hand under his chin as he considered the dark mage's motives. Gathering humans and ints together. Could they be preparing a massive summoning ritual? Or turning them into undead? His thoughts darkened, and his eyes flickered with red rage. "I won't tolerate this. How dare they mess with my precious elixir?" Underlord had watched, unimpressed. "What kind of person are you?" Now, back in the present, Aiden relayed all of this to Tyan. Tyan's fists clenched, his teeth grinding. "Filthy bastards. What on earth are they planning?" Aiden shook his head. "I don't know for sure, but someone who escaped told me where they're hiding. I'm planning on going there to spy on them and gather more information." Tyan straightened, his eyes determined. "Leave that to us. It happened in our territory, so it's only right for us to handle it." Aiden placed a firm hand on Tyan's shoulder. "No, I can't leave after you came to help. I'm not pushing the dangerous part onto you alone. I'm going too." In that moment, Tyan saw Aiden bathed in a bright yellow light, his expression sincere and resolute. Tears welled up in Tyan's eyes, and his face turned red. "I can't believe it. You're such a great guy, Aiden." I misjudged you." Aiden looked back at him, confusion plain on his face as a bead of sweat trickled down his temple. Why is he crying? How cringy can he get? Aiden thought, holding back a sigh. Then he steeled himself, a deeper concern clouding his mind. If what the ant said is true, chaos isn't the only problem. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. If you'd like to see more manhwa recaps like this, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. That way, you'll stay updated on all my future content. Until next time, take care.